Okay. Okay.
That's
All
what
right.
I do. Yep.
Okay. At this time, I'd like to call the governance meeting to order. Board members present are, I'm assuming, Green, Ramsdale, Perry. Is anyone else? I can't see anyone else. Who else is there? Okay.
Why don't
so
you
that
call
means
our names?
what, Miss. Okay. If I can remember. Listen, if I can remember everyone. Okay, Mrs. Board President Lester, is he here? Okay, Treasurer Green,
Yes.
Secretary Ramsdale,
Yes.
Mrs. McIntosh, Ms. Perry,
Yeah.
Mr. Strozier. Okay, so board members absent are Strozier, McIntosh, and who else? I think that's it, Strozier and McIntosh. All right, so at this time, we will open up for public comment. So do we have any questions from the public, Monica?
I don't see any questions polled right now.
Okay.
I'd like to remind the public to make sure that I've also been monitoring the email account so that if there are anyone that would like to submit a comment or question, to make sure that they're submitting them at FBOE@flintschools.org.
Okay. I noticed that we have policy review discussion and expulsions and reinstatements. Do you guys want to reverse that?
Whatever.
Yes,
Unless Mr. Stewart wants to stay here until he hears all of
No, I'd rather
You say
not.
no?
I said you can reverse it.
So if that's okay with the other board members, is it
That's
okay to
fine.
reverse that on the agenda? Okay, that way we can get the expulsion and reinstatements done. And Monica, you got me in that meeting, huh? Oh, she didn't hear that. Okay, so you guys can go ahead with the expulsions and reinstatements.
So we're bringing this as item to the board today because I don't want to let Mr. Stewart talk, but prior to school closures by the governor, Dr. Lopez had recommended 6 students to be expelled from school. And the expulsion hearings were supposed to happen on the 19th and the 24th. However, school was closed prior to those 2 dates, and so we were not able to have the expulsion hearing for those 6 students. Mr. Stewart also has 4 additional students that he's going to talk about in a minute. And so I guess we wanted to kind of know from the board how you guys want to handle the expulsion hearings since we are all working remotely and school has been closed. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Stewart to kind of elaborate and add some more information.
Well, you said it all. We just basically want to know how we're going to move forward with the expulsion process. Like I said, we have a total of 10 right now that we need to take up for expulsions. And we just need to figure out if we're going to do it remotely or are we going to just wait until, we're allowed to go back to work and then conduct those hearings.
Mr. Stewart, if we do it remotely and do it now or within the next couple of weeks, does that make a difference in the timeline? Like if they're expelled for a certain amount of time, or does that not?
Well, actually, that's a good question because no, it doesn't. Because right now, these are not scheduled school days because school has been shut down for the remainder of the school year. These are not scheduled school days. And so those expulsions have to be scheduled school days. So if we decide to come back once they lifted the shutdown, then we would just calculate the number of days from the time of the incident minus this time here and then moving forward.
Hey, Ms. Stewart, when are we scheduled to start? If we're staying on the year-round program, when are we scheduled to start?
So as of right now, tentatively, we're scheduled to start in August. So we're currently working on a calendar with our unions. Cassandra so the district has a calendar that we're recommending, but Cassandra is in the process of meeting with the unions so that we can solidify the date. But as of right now, normally we start like that first Monday or Tuesday in August, and so we're potentially looking at August 3rd or August 4th for our students to start school.
Well,
Isn't this? Go ahead.
My feeling is if we're not starting until August, that we could put this off until either maybe we can open enough to have that the schools, the building may be open that we can do this, or then we can decide fine. If we were going to start earlier, then I'd say let's do it now. That's just my thought on it, is that if we're not starting till August, that I'd give us some slide room to see which direction we go in and how long it takes, where we are, and like say another month or 6 weeks.
So the governor's current executive order is for school to be closed for the remainder of this school year, unless something else happens and she rescinds that or changes the date. But as of right now, all communication and webinars that I've seen from her, it's likely going to stay in place for the remainder of the year.
And what's that date?
June, the last day of school is it June 19th, Mr. Stewart? The
Yes.
last day of school for students is June 18th.
June 18th.
18th is a Thursday.
I don't have any issue waiting until school ends. I mean,
I just,
But every-
can I make a comment? I
Okay,
don't see.
I want somebody, whoever's running
Go
this
ahead,
meeting,
Ms. Perry.
to know
Go
I've been
ahead,
trying to
Ms.
say
Perry.
something. No, you go, but
But I
just pick me
can't-
next.
No, you did start talking before I did, so go ahead. Go ahead.
Go
I
right
can
ahead.
wait.
Go ahead. I'm not gonna say anything.
No.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
See, I can't see you
I
because
just wanted to
I
call
try to
next.
wave my hand when I want
Well, see, you can't see me. I can't do
to
video.
talk, so I apologize for that. But right, that's what I said. I can't see you. That's absolutely right. I can't see you. But I was just saying that under these conditions, I don't understand why we would hold off on those kinds of things, because we have time, if nothing else. So, and I don't think in my entire time on the board have I ever heard of having 10 students that we need to have discussions about. So I think that during this time period, we should take care of those things. And even if, regards to when the timeline starts, I just don't see a reason to sit on that kind of stuff.
So
Let me add to this. There are 10 students, but there are some where their incidents go back to as far as
November.
November, as far as November, right? And so I just want to make it clear to the board that it wasn't just 10 recent incidents. Some of these incidents the district has had for a minute.
And I also want to state that we normally have expulsion hearings with the board, and the parents are allowed to come in and give testimony. So we would have to, if we do it now, we would have to make sure that our parents are able to do the virtual.
Okay. Well, okay. I get that. Well, I guess I'll go on the recommendation of the superintendent and Mr. Stewart on that one. So that's all I have to say. Ms. Perry.
The start of school, really right now, there is no set time for school to start because the governor said about 2 weeks ago, when being pressed by the press, she said, I can't tell you when school will start. It may not start in August, September, or October because they're looking for this virus to still be around. And until they come up with a vaccine or whatever they need to come up with, she actually said, I can't tell you a thing about this. So we don't know when school started.
Yeah.
Anybody else, Mrs. Ramsdale?
You know what? I understand what you're saying, Ms. Wright. I don't disagree with it at all. And Ms. Perry, you're right too. I guess my only thing is let's just decide and go. And if they say school's not going to open, then school's not going to open, and we have to go from there. I don't want to wait on everything, but I have no issue with doing it now, putting it off. But I guess probably my biggest thing would be, you know, whatever Mr. Stewart finds would be convenient for however we could work with the students and the parents. That's fine with me.
And that's why I would like to recommend that we hold off until the shutdown is lifted, at least till we can go back to work, because that way we can give the parents and the students an opportunity to speak to the board like we've normally done in the past.
Okay, well, I defer to the administration on that.
I agree.
That makes sense.
Ms. Perry, were you saying something?
I said that makes sense.
Okay, Ms. Green, did I hear you?
Attorney Williams was trying to say something.
Oh,
Yeah.
Kendall?
Yep.
Yeah, obviously with these proceedings, Mr. Stewart is concerned about the rights of the students and their parents in terms of missing school days. Since we don't have school days, that interest is not something that's really present. So, and the point that he made as well about access to the internet and the ability to use technology could be an impediment for them. So it strikes me that waiting would be the best strategy, and it sounds like that's what both Anita and Ernest would prefer. And I don't think you're going to run afoul of any particular rights by waiting until you know when school's going to start. So.
Right.
I just want to add that once we make the decision here, tomorrow we immediately going to send notification out to parents, letting them know where the status of this process.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm in agreement with that.
Thank you. We know that hearings were controlled by the board, and so we wanted to just bring that to you guys so that you can make a decision.
Okay.
No, that's
Okay.
All right.
Anything else on that matter?
No, that's it. Anything else, Mr. Stewart?
Oh, I'm done.
All right, then you can tap out.
All right, so it's nice seeing all you guys.
All right, Ernest. Take care. I got teased by Diana the last time, and I had a sport coat on. So today, I got a casual sweater on. So with my pajamas on. So.
you're still cute.
Thank you, Betty. I love it.
All right. The next item on the agenda, you know what, Monica did such a nice agenda. I had a more specific one that I don't know if she sent it to you guys. But anyway, we want to talk about some of our policies and hear some pertinent information from Attorney Williams. So at this point, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Attorney Williams.
Back in 2018, the board resolved, after I think years of effort to try to review and put together the policies from Neola, resolved to maintain your current policies and have the Neola policies adopted, subject to the caveat that if they were at all inconsistent or in conflict with your current board policies, the current board policies would apply and supersede in effect. And as you all know, those of you who've been on the board for a while, the board has spent a tremendous amount of time and effort adopting board policies, amending those board policies, putting together regulations, district regulations for those. And as we have lived through a couple of years of having these two sets of policies, it's clear that there's a lot of confusion that has arisen as a result. Many of the Neola policies, frankly, are replications of what the board already has in place and has had in place for a long, long time. Yesterday, I had an extensive conversation with our CFO about the purchasing policy. You have a board policy that's been in place for a while. Then you have this Neola purchasing policy that has provisions that are a bit vague, unclear, and seemingly in conflict with our purchasing policy, and it makes it difficult for staff to figure out what to follow. And frankly, having two sets of policies like this, I think, is not a good governance model. It's difficult for staff to follow. I think it creates a tremendous amount of unnecessary confusion. There are a number, as we look at them, the board policies as they existed pretty much cover everything. There's only one Neola policy, arguably, that should be incorporated into your policies, and that's the one that has to do with staff being prohibited from referring students for abortions. But other than that, everything else is in place. And there are a number of Neola policies that are really superfluous. They have policies that essentially address compliance with state and federal law. And just because there's a law in place doesn't mean that the school district has to have a policy in place. I'll give you the simplistic example. It's obviously against the law in Michigan, in the country, not to murder somebody. But it's not mandated that the school district have a policy that says that. And a number of these Neola policies are essentially a replication of what some state or federal law provides. And again, you all have done a tremendous amount of work on your current policies. The confusion that's created by having these Neola policies, I think, is just simply a problem. And it would be my recommendation that that this committee consider a recommendation to rescind the Neola policies, and again, the one policy that addresses the referring of students for abortions be integrated into your current board policies. There's a personnel section, I think it's section 5,000, just simply have that that added. But as I talked to Carrie, if you look at your purchasing policy, and the board spent a lot of time on that, your bidding processes and regulations, you have all that in place. And to have a set of Neola policies that are arguably confusing and inconsistent, I think it makes it difficult from an operational perspective. The other point is that in the Neola policies, they reference administrative guidelines, and apparently those have never been adopted. And the administrative guidelines would be akin to your regulations, but you have regulations in place. And you're under your current board policies, regulations go through the board for approval. Under the Neola policies, the superintendent can adopt administrative guidelines, which from a governance perspective, I think should give you pause, because you need to know what those are. That's all I have.
So, Kendall, at the time that we were looking or going through the Neola policies, I was under the understanding that there was some mandate that we had to update policy based on whatever changes that had occurred in legislation or school code. So what I'm hearing you say is that that's not necessarily so.
By and large, your policies already were in compliance with that, and again, I would certainly, and we've looked through those, and with the exception of that one Neola policy that addresses the referral of students for abortions, everything else is really covered. And a lot of these, for example, the one policy in Neola, which is rather interesting. It's the Iran Economic Sanctions Act compliance policy. Really? I've been board counsel for a lot of damn years. We've never had a contract with Iran. I don't think we've ever had a discussion about damn Iran. So really, we want a policy about Iran? Come on. I mean, that's absurd. That's totally absurd. And again, just because some federal law is out, it doesn't require that there be a board policy that deals with it. I mean, you have to comply with the law. So if Anita wants to bring a contract to do business with some oil sheik in Iran, then you're going to talk about it and you're going to question her about that and determine whether or not it complies with this federal law. But you don't need a policy about it. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, Mrs. Ramsdale, and then, did I hear you, Miss Perry?
No, I was just saying, okay.
Okay,
Um,
Mrs. Ramsdale.
Well, first of all, you know, some of those people from Iran may be one of my distant cousins. So Anita, if you want to think, but other than that, going back to Wright's statement, is the Board of Education, are they saying, when I think of the hour, especially Diane and and Monica put in on those, is the state saying we have to go by the Neola policies, or is it just their strong recommendation? I'm just saying.
I don't think either of those are true.
Okay.
That was not a mandate by the state. That was just, I don't know who got, is Monica on? Monica?
Yes.
So how did it come up? So can you give us some background on how we ended up doing the policy review with Neola?
That was under Larry Watkins when he was interim superintendent, and he obtained a grant through he obtained a grant. And of course, the grant afforded us to utilize their services because we are the only school district in the county that does not utilize the Neola policies. So in order to kind of come in line with the rest of the Genesee County and make sure that our policies were written so that we were out of compliance, we began the process through Mr. Watkins, and it was, if you recall, Dr. Peters, it was a very lengthy process because policies alone, we were already told it was going to take up to 2 years. We've had changes in superintendents and board members during that time, and the administrative guidelines have to then follow the policies. So that's my knowledge of it as well, is that Mr. Watkins obtained a grant and they were brought in, and the process probably began in the fall of 14, maybe the spring of 14.
So when you say so that we would not be in compliance, you're only speaking of being sort of in lockstep with the rest of the county, not in compliance with government and legal, legislature, school code, and all those kinds of things.
Well, there is some implication. I mean, those were some of the discussions that, of course, because of course I did not sit up in any sort of federal review of title grants or any sort of state review of any pieces, but we have attendees in the room, such as Ms. Murphy or Mrs. Sikowski, that could state that some of our policies speak to a state or a federal level, and because of the purchasing or whatnot, they just want to know which policy we are following. So that's my understanding of it. And so we are the only. Yes.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, so we were just trying to get in compliance as far as a standpoint as a county-wide, so that we were all universal in utilizing the same policies across the county.
But may I say something?
Go ahead, Ms. Perry.
Yeah, but that doggone Neola, that's, for a lack of a better word, that's the most jibber jabber stuff I've ever seen in my life.
It's a legal term. It's the legal term.
It's
That's what you really think, Ms. Perry.
it was so confusing just trying to review it when we first started and as we continued on. And I've often said, why can't we just get rid of this and stick with our policies? We have the policies that the county has. We're just not using the exact words that they use. But as long as we're not breaking a state or federal law, it doesn't make sense. I hate to say it, that was just somebody making some money off of us.
Okay. Are you done, Ms. Perry?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Ms. Ramsdale.
You know, to me, if we're the same as the county or anything else, that is, if we're legal, is my major point. And to talk to Carrie and to Kiana, if the policy states what they need and how they need it, then that's fine. I don't want them confused because we've got two. So I would certainly say to them, okay, which one of these, if there's two policies, which one of these is the best for you to work with? And to adopt that, whether we match the county or not. I have to say, like Vera said, almost everything is in compliance, and that's it's pretty common sense. So if those are the major parts, and Monica, I'm going by some of what you're saying. If those are the major parts that we have to be clear on, then I certainly would want clarity on those, and however the wording is, that it fits into the policies on those two things. I don't know why, if it's okay with the State Board of Education, I don't know why.
Was it really?
A lot of time. I mean, that wouldn't work out.
Who said was it really?
Either way, it was, you know, I think those, it seems to me that those are the two major points out of all this. Is that what you're thinking, Kendall, or what?
Yeah, you are in compliance, and if you want to broaden and look at some other areas to incorporate, you can do that. Again, I talked to Carrie today extensively about it, and you look at the two purchasing, policies, and as Vera so eloquently stated it, in many cases the Neola policies are jibber jabber. I'll give you, like, the use of school facilities, their policy 7510, it goes through in terms of using facilities like for events and what have you, with nonprofits and social organizations, civic organizations. But then it says that the use of district facilities shall not be used for private social functions. What does that mean? I mean, so a function that is put on by some private nonprofit, that's a private social function. It doesn't make sense. And in a number of these cases, if you look at the purchasing policy, and that's what Carrie and her staff struggle with, if you read it, it doesn't make any sense. Many of those provisions are inconsistent. They blended the purchasing and the bidding procedures. I give credit to this board. You went through a lot of effort and you separated all of that. You have a separate set of guidelines for administration to follow when it comes to the bidding process. So frankly, I think that you are much better set. And I can tell you that other school districts that may have Neola policies in place in this ISD, they've adopted them, for themselves and for their unique circumstances, because they're not a one fits all, quite frankly.
Well, I don't have the mindset that we have to be in lockstep with every district in the county, because the bottom line is the policies that we have, if they cover all of the circumstances that we need to cover, because they're provided by Neola, doesn't make them better than what we already have. So
Right.
I am going to defer to legal as to the recommendation to rescind the Neola policies. And then as Vice President, I would like us to continually review, because the policies, because there are some things within policies that we need to revise and make them more, to provide more clarity, not be more vague. For example, we talked about the one experience we had with some disagreement as to who is able to lease district property. We need to be very clear that the board expects to have the final say on long-term leases, not this Saturday, but if you want to lease one of our buildings for an entire year with designated spaces, that should come before the board. So if we don't have that in any policy specifically stating the board's desire, then those are the kinds of things we need to work on. And it is my goal to continue to have regular governance meetings so that we can tighten up those kinds of things.
I have a question.
Because right now we have a legitimate issue regarding the lease of a space in one of our buildings, and our policies are not clear in that respect. The board thinks one thing and previous administration thought something else. So we need to take that room for being unclear out of that particular policy. Ms. Perry?
Is this where, well, you've heard me mention before, because of what we're living under right now, but is this where the board would write policy, or we need to discuss it on how we will handle an event like this that has happened? And we'd have things, policy and regulations as to what we will do as far as educating our children, feeding the children, et cetera, et cetera. Would that go into governance, or where does that go?
Governance, I believe. That's a good point. Obviously, it's something that probably wasn't envisioned by any of us. But how to handle the situation, this kind of a catastrophic operational situation, that this would be appropriate for the governance committee to frame some type of guidance for administration in dealing with this.
That's it. Yeah, that's what we're going to have. We've got to work on that.
Right. And you know, I believe that administration has already helped us a lot with that, with their plan, because we can kind of take the plan that they have for, you know, the online learning and all of those things, and sort of, you know, smooth it up, and, you know, in terms of generic, this is what we'll do if this happens. So I think they have kind of given us a start for that. By the way, good also on the news, Miss Anita.
And my office is actually working up a policy on remote work. You know, a lot of yes, some computer usage, but it's a lot different when you're talking about people working from home. My team is actually, we've had clients who've asked for that to help them put together policies dealing with that. So this is a good example of that.
Okay, that's what I'm looking for. Yeah, no, I was just going to say that's what I'm looking for. I'm very appreciative of what administration has done. We don't have to reinvent the wheel if the wheel already has a frame to it. But I just really want us to, as we move forward, maybe in 6 months, as we're going down the line, we can develop some things and have them in place, because as I just said, they're talking possibly us revisiting this again in the fall. So we need to really look at some things and know what we're going to do. So, because the parents have really been patient with us, they've supported us, but now, because they know all of us got caught blindsided, but now is the time for us to show, yep, here we go. This is how we're going to do it. So that's all I'd like to do that. I'd really like to have that done.
Mrs. Ramsdale.
Yeah, I totally agree with all that, as long as as we're doing these, that we keep the people that have the most knowledge about what it's doing involved in those discussions. So if we're talking about, how we, stuff that is under Carrie's supervision, that we get with her and she works with us to let us know what works best and how and why. And when we do the other for that, Ms. Stewart, and again, just kudos to you and your whole staff. It's awesome. That they're involved in the verbiage of that and what kind of things we write into it. But again, as long as it's all right with the state, I think this has been a good discussion. And
well, Mrs. Ramsell, even during that long period of time when we were working on policies, administration was always at the table. Superintendent, legal, because last time we really worked on these was during Mr. Twab's tenure. And so Mr. Twab, Mr. Young, Ferris, all of them were at the table. So we haven't had any governance meetings for over a year. So
I was being critical.
So no, I didn't even take it that way. I was just kind of letting you know that we try to be collaborative as we're looking at these things.
It just makes me think of the nurses at Genesis said, why the hell didn't the architects talk to us before they designed this building? True. If you
I'm 100% in agreement, because you can't, in these in our line of work, you can't do, administration can't decide how the board's going to handle it, and the board has to have some input from administration when we're developing these things. So that's the only way it's really going to work well.
Agree.
Miss Green, are you there? Was Danielle on this call?
He was to start.
Yeah, because she's been awful quiet. Miss Green? Maybe she's out.
Been trying, but I just gave up, but I hear everything.
Oh, because I didn't hear you.
Okay, yeah, she is. Okay, yeah.
So is there any comment you'd like to make? That's why I'm asking, because I know you hadn't said anything.
Appreciate that. It was a while back when we were talking about the Neola policy and the policies we have in place. And I think my question was answered, because I was wondering how the rest of the county is doing. Is everybody adapting the Neola policy, or are they kind of creating our own, like we kind of did? And is that kind of okay? I think my question was answered. I just wondered, because I thought we were mandated to do Neola also, but I guess we're not, because that was clear. And it's just like, I guess it's a suggestion is what Neola's policies are, a suggestion.
Yeah.
I don't even think it was a suggestion. I just think it's like, everybody's doing it, let's do it too.
So that's okay. Okay. So I think my
question, that's just my opinion. That's how it sounds anyway.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and I talked to Carrie, who worked up in Saginaw Township. She said that as they developed new policies, they looked at Neola as a guide, but they didn't adopt them.
Okay.
They just looked at it and said, look, this is good, this is bad. And again, in a number of cases, I don't mean to be critical. I don't know a single person who works with Neola or for Neola, but I wrote better than this when I was at Walker School.
Stop.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, my teachers at Walker Elementary School trained me better than this, but yeah.
I just trying to let us know he was in the gifted program. All right, Mr. Williams.
I was there before the gifted program, and Vera will attest to that.
You're right.
I just wanted to make sure that we were doing what we're supposed to do, and we are in alignment with, and I think I gathered that we are. So that's what I kind of, so you guys covered all my stuff. Thank you.
That's right. The only thing you don't have in your policies is the Iran provision dealing with Betty's potential distant cousins.
Okay.
Okay, you're okay. I could security guard from Iran. That might make a big difference.
Oh, wow. So, Ms. Sakowski, is she on the line?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Sakowski? So,
I'm here.
In the discussion that we've had thus far, have your issues been addressed as it relates to purchasing policies and so forth?
Yeah, I spoke with Kendall earlier today and kind of just talked through what the board's expectation was just in regards to the original policies. And I believe that I have a good understanding in Attorney Williams. If you can correct me if I'm wrong, but my main questions were what needs to come before the board for board approval. And it sounded like basically anything with a contract, we should be coming to the board for approval. Other items, as long as they are budgeted and we're not exceeding budget, then we would be okay to go ahead and pay or to purchase this, the item. Is that what the board's belief is also?
Well, wouldn't those items that you're purchasing already have been approved by the board?
So let's say for an example here, in recent history, we were looking at possibly purchasing some signs to put at our playgrounds. We've taped them off so that, we don't have people coming to the playgrounds at the school to play due to the corona. We were kind of unsure because it's not really something that was contemplated, but is that go to the board or do we have the ability to purchase that? So really that was where, that's where I really need some clarity as to what does the board want to see? Is it because you've already approved the budget and we're not exceeding budgeted amounts? Is that sufficient as long as we're not entering into any contracts?
Well, my
the
personal
board needs
opinion. Go ahead, Vera.
anything that's
Vera?
purchased, anything that's purchased, if we let too many of those types of purchases get out there, that could throw us over budget. So the board at least needs to get a executive summary saying we spent $350 to buy some signs. Because I guess I've been burned so many times that things got pushed through, didn't know anything about it as treasurer. So of course the board didn't know. So I've been the board member to say, bring it to the board. Let us at least know you spent this money.
Right, and hopefully with the monthly information that I am providing, the balance sheet, which gives you all your cash account balances, your budget versus actual, so the approved board budget versus what we have spent, so you can clearly see that we're still under budgeted amounts, and the check registers, and then also we'll be sending the check register out every 2 weeks, but you'll get it monthly at a time. Is that sufficient, or we just don't want, we want to be able, if we have or what can we provide you to be able to make purchases that are in line with everyday school district operations without having to wait a full month?
Those are the kinds of things that the superintendent and the board president discussed in their weekly meetings. She would talk about, I'm going to do this, because it wouldn't be just that CFOs, the financial office, would just make these purchases. We're thinking that there's some discussion between administration, so then the superintendent and the board president would have a discussion about those things, so that because he's sort of the voice of the board, and say, yeah, that's in line with our expectation, and we also have some guidelines as to, it can't be over a certain amount of money without board approval, but we have given the superintendent some discretion as to making necessary purchases without board approval. So my expectation would be that prior to those kind of expenditures, that at least the superintendent has had a discussion with the board president, because I'm trusting his judgment to a large degree to say, hey, yeah, I think we're going to be okay with that until you can bring that information to the board. Then he would say, you know, he or she would say, you know, I was okay with that, felt it was necessary or whatever. But I think that that has to come through that channel for me to be okay with it.
Well, for
Can I
about,
say something?
for about 15 years, and I think, Vera, you were pushing for this, and there was pushback, but it seems like forever. There was a push by the treasurer and the board to get the check register, and there was pushback for some reason. And most of my school clients, the boards get the check register, you know, as Carrie has indicated. So that gives you notice as to what the expenditures are within budget and so forth. The interest of the board was if there's going to be some service contract or a contract for the purchase of a substantial amount of goods, the board would have the authority to see it and decide whether to approve it.
Can I
Sorry,
say something?
Vera.
And let me say, and Diana, let me say this.
Yes,
All due respect
Ms. Green
to,
next after Perry.
all due
Go ahead, Ms.
respect
Perry.
to, all due respect to what process is supposed to happen when, and I'm not throwing a stone at anyone right now, but I got to make this statement. But when there's been a decision made that even the board president was not informed of by the superintendent, and we're paying out checks that were underneath the underneath the radar, and then it was said, write the checks at this amount because we don't need Vera to see the check.
Oh,
Board president didn't even know this, didn't even know that that expenditure was there. That's why I've been pounding all the time that letters need to be, I mean, at least an executive summary or something given to us, because the business office got upset because they knew I didn't know what was going on. And that happened up under one of our superintendents that didn't even tell, and at that time, Antoinette was board president. She didn't even know what was happening. Business office made sure I found out about it. They did it a funny way so I could find it, and that's how we stopped it. So that's what I'm saying. All due respect, I don't like to, I've been burned.
you know, Ms. Perry,
I want something. Go ahead.
you know, I guess my comment was not in regards to people writing checks that, you know, you can write a lot of little checks to cover a big thing. I'm speaking in terms of what we are giving the superintendent and her staff the ability to purchase while waiting for board approval. And even in this current administration, things were purchased under a certain threshold because they felt they needed it. And then at the very next board meeting, we were given notification. But usually the superintendent would discuss that with the board president. It just didn't get to the rest of the board in some cases until you got to the meeting. I'm not suggesting in any way, shape, or form that they just go out and purchase everything. We're talking about things that are absolutely necessary under a certain threshold. And I think we gave them a threshold of $5,000 or something like that, where purchases could be made by the superintendent, but the board still has to be informed at the earliest convenience. So it's a little bit different than somebody trying to skirt the process with a $15,000 bill by writing three $5,000 checks. So no, I'm in total agreement with you on that, complete. But I didn't think that was sort of this situation that we were talking about. Maybe I'm misunderstanding.
Well, currently, if, in Attorney Williams, if you can help me out here, currently as the policy sits, as it's been approved by the board, the current board, only contracts would go before the board. The only thing that talks about the $5,000 are emergency purchases. And those would not be your everyday items. So is that, and if we need to adjust that, I am more than happy to proceed in any manner that the board would like. I just think that if there's going to be some changes, we might need to ask Attorney Williams to write up a new policy that is clear, because as it sits, that's not exactly what it says. And I want us all to be on the same page, because I want to make sure that you're confident that what we're doing is what the board intends.
Can I say what I was getting ready to say? Can y'all hear me?
Go
at
ahead,
all?
Ms. Green.
Okay.
Yes, I hear you. Go ahead.
I'm just wondering, is something wrong with this thing? Because I've been trying to say something for the longest. Okay. So I kind of want to touch on what Mrs. Wright said and Mr. Koski said also, because from my understanding, we allow the superintendent the discretion to make 3 purchases of a maximum of $5,000 3 times a month. And the board is to be notified, to notify us, not at their discretion, but within 24 hours. So is that something, I mean, I guess emergency, we need to kind of what an emergency may be and may not be. But I do think that's to give the superintendent the discretion to make those emergency purchases, whatever we decide those emergencies are, 3 times a month, or to be notified within 24 hours. I think, no discretion there. That's an email. I mean, I don't know, a robot, or whatever you have to do. I think this is a good, I don't want to call it a policy, because I'm not sure exactly if that's what it is, but I think this is if not a start to creating a policy. Because I mean, because we got to give the superintendent some discretion.
Yeah, I think the way, Danielle, the way it's written, and this was what Carrie referenced as well.
Right.
That provision is included under the emergency purchases section of the current policy 3610.
Okay.
But the language, and again, this is just the lawyer in me, the language says, and this is under emergency purchases, and the term emergency is defined in the policy. And it's defined as something that's a result of an accident or any unforeseen circumstances or occurrence that could affect life, health, welfare, or safety of our students and employees. And that would be an example of the signs that Carrie mentioned. They have to be put up, any tape, and we need to do that. It's unforeseen. But then the sentence that was added back in October, when the board approved this on October 16th, it says, the superintendent may also approve a contingent purchase up to $5,000, a maximum of 3 times each month, with notification to the board within 24 hours. The problem with that language is it doesn't define what a contingent purchase is.
Okay.
And I don't think we said that exactly like that either.
Yeah, well, that's what's in the policy. I think what you wanted to say was an emergency purchase, and that, because contingent purchase is not defined in this policy.
Okay. So we're talking. Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
Okay. Ms. Ramsdale.
All of this discussion points to the reason why we need to sit down and go over the policy. Because what we're doing, we're going over the policy and seeing the strong points, the short points, and whatever. So I think, to take this whole conversation and have a governance, whenever you want to start it, Ms. Wright, it doesn't have to be, we don't have to wait.
Today was the start.
Well, obviously the need to do this. However, we may opt to do it, but it obviously needs to be done just for clarity's sake. And Carrie, really appreciate your openness too. We haven't had anybody do that in a long while from that office. So we appreciate.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh my. So that's all. That's what I had to say.
Okay. Anyone else have a comment to make regarding purchasing or anything that we've discussed thus far? I've written Anybody? Well, I have been taking notes, and I have all of the numbers that we will be starting with reviewing. So hopefully we'll schedule another governance meeting. What's this, April? In May, because we will not, we don't want to lose our momentum since we have a little. So hopefully we will clear up a lot of things and make sure that administration can do their business without any impediments. Is there anything?
With your permission, then what I'll do is put together a revised policy 3610. And share that with Carrie. I'll collaborate with her and Anita. Put something together to bring back to the governance committee, Diana. And what about a board resolution to rescind the Neola policy?
Right, and so that's what I would like to ask this committee, if we are in agreement that we will rescind the Neola policies. So is there any opposition to that? Ms. Ramsdale?
I think you got paused, Betty.
Yeah.
Mrs. Wright and Attorney Williams. Also, I'm going to reach out to my auditor and just kind of verify if there's anything missing in our current policies that might put us out of compliance for the audit. And I will share that information with the both of you when I hear back from the auditors. And I'll also touch base with Kiana. I believe those will all be the same as what the auditor will say, that we need to make sure that they're updated. So we'll do that too. That way, hopefully we can get those passed before June 30th. That would be really important.
Thank you, Carrie. I was going to ask that you look at the year for compliance reasons for title funds for grants. But thank you.
Okay, somebody needs to mute. I hear another conversation.
You hear my son's big mouth.
Oh, oh, is that Chaka?
He's working from home and you can hear him.
Oh,
He forgets to calm it down.
Oh, okay. All right. So I was asking if there is an agreement that we will have Attorney Williams do a resolution or whatever we need to do to rescind the Neola policies.
I'm in agreement.
So is this something that we'll vote on collectively? The all committees?
Oh yeah, we all have to vote on that.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure. Okay.
Yeah, but what we're
need a
doing is
motion?
saying we can bring it to the board to.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure.
So is Betty back on? Because do we have enough people do we need what, 3 people for this committee? So if Danielle, Ms. Perry and I agree, then we have so do I need to make a motion on that, Mr. Somebody?
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, is this a subcommittee meeting or a committee of the whole?
This is our governance. It's a governance
Supposed to be subcommittee, I thought.
committee. It's
Subcommittee?
Governance is a subcommittee, yes.
Okay, yeah, so you just need, how many people? There are only, 5 on the committee?
Yes.
All of the committee chairs.
Okay, so you got three votes to pass a motion to
Carol's
recommend
actually,
action.
Ms. Ramsdale is back.
There she go. Oh, we can't hear her though.
Is Carol McIntosh on the line as well?
I am.
Oh, I didn't know you were here.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes, we hear you.
Okay, good.
So we were asking for, I guess, a vote to move this to the committee of the whole, a resolution to rescind the Neola policies.
Okay, I make a motion to rescind the Neola policies.
So move. Second.
Okay, it has been moved that, well, we will move the recommendation to rescind the Neola policies to the committee of the whole. So, Mr. Williams, if you will create those documents, we'd appreciate it.
Okay.
Is there
All right.
any
What
further
about all in
comment from?
favor?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we. Okay.
You
All in
didn't
favor?
vote. I made the
Yes,
motion.
ma'am. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I just like to.
That's Ms. Perry. We're good. We're good. All in favor of moving forward the resolution to rescind the Neola policy, say aye.
Aye.
I
Those opposed, nay. Okay, it moves forward that we will have a resolution to rescind the Neola policies at the Committee of the Whole in May or at the next meeting. When is that going to take? Should we do it at the next special meeting or can we do it?
Well,
I've
should
already
we,
reviewed the agenda.
I'm sorry, but should we do it, should we get our own policies in order and just say that we are adopting these policies and not accepting the Neola? And that would be one less meeting we'd have to have. Should we get our
Well,
own in order so
Well,
our,
Your policies
know
are in
how
place.
that-
Your policies are in place already. You don't have to do anything. You can update them going forward, but they're in place. They've been in place.
all right,
My question is, can we do that at the meeting tomorrow or do we need to wait until next month? So tomorrow is
tomorrow a
special
regular
order.
meeting, special? The only problem is the 48-hour
Oh, okay.
notice.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could do it by waiver, or you could wait until next month. But I think if you wait, it'll allow Carrie to check with the auditors. So I think don't do it tomorrow, but wait until your next. When is the next regular meeting, Monica?
The COW meeting is on May 13th.
Okay. So I think that would be good, Diana.
Okay, all right. So and we will have this brought forth at the May 13th Committee of the Whole. So is there anything else for anyone? Okay, with that, I guess that means this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night.